The Tenere 700 is a ripper. It's fun to ride, but it is also far from perfect. We've all seen pole Taros do insane things on one, but that got me thinking, how good could it be off-road? What if we put some time and money into making it better? What can I then make this bike do? Welcome to episode 1 of our Tenere 700 project bike series. Over the next 4 episodes, I'm going to take you on the journey of building this bike step by step, testing it, fettling it, going from a stock bike to this beautiful off-road weapon, and culminating in a ride where I see how technical I can get before I cry. Before we make any significant modifications like exhausts or suspension, there's some base groundwork that needs to be done. And the first part of that is making the bike feel comfortable and handle as best as possible off-road before we change anything else. I also think it needs a fairly large amount of protection and help in that area, because unlike bikes like the KTM 890, this probably won't crash as well. The plastics are going to be a bit more brittle, it's a little bit more exposed. So that's what we're going to start with. When it comes to riding off-road, one of the most important things for me is being balanced on the bike in yourself. And that comes from being able to control your own center of gravity. And now this Tenere 700, much like an Africa Twin, has a really upright riding position. The handlebars and the foot pegs are quite close together, and as a result it can be a little bit tricky to control your own center of gravity. It's lovely on a dirt road, it is not so good when it's tricky. Anything that's mildly uphill, I find myself on the Tenere having to slightly tug on the handlebars unless I'm really forceful with my position to get my back flat. The other problem that I think this bike has in stock trim is that the balance of the suspension is off. Now, I talked about this quite a bit in my initial review, and when we went on the press launch, I worked quite hard to try to figure out as quickly as possible how to get the suspension working a little bit better, to make it a bit more balanced front to rear, and to give you some feeling at the front tyre back. What a lovely trail this is when it's dry. When it's wet, this trail is absolutely horrendous. Whoa. That's a little bit tight. Wasn't expecting that. One of the other things that'll be really interesting to solve on this Tenere is the fueling. I think the fueling in general is really good, but doesn't mean it can't be better, especially the little infamous step that you get just on first opening. And I want to see what this engine is capable of, so that's going to be a whole nother episode all on its own right. We're going to see how easy it is to improve the fueling, how easy it is to improve on the power characteristics of this bike, and what happens when you do so. I'm actually, every time I ride this, pleasantly surprised. It gets a bit of a bad rap online, but honestly, I think the suspension's pretty good for an adventure bike. It does most things well. That's what an adventure bike should do. For most adventure riders, I think it's a really good place to start from. However, that's not really the goal of this project. The goal of this project is to see what the upper limit of performance off-road is for this bike for most people to achieve. Now, when it comes to achieving that, I don't want to just go down one route, say it's great, and then leave it. I want to test out how good we can get it at 3 different price points. And that's that. Those are the planned out stages for our Tenere 700 project bike. Now it's time to finish this episode off by heading back to the house, getting a beer, getting the tools out and starting to take bits off and put new shiny light bits on. Sounds like a good time to me. The plan for the T7 has been ever evolving. I started with a list of parts from experience, but after a lot of reading and Googling, my list grew massively. This might take a while, so bear with me. First on my list was to see if it's possible to improve the riding position by moving the handlebar position in the clamps. Turns out the T7 handlebar clamps are offset, which means that you can rotate them and move the handlebars forward a little bit. You gain about 5 mil of forward movement by doing this, and it should be enough to make a noticeable difference. Let's start with those protection parts. First up was a better sump guard. I chose an Acerbis plastic one. I really like plastic. It's strong, it's light, it's quiet, and it stays in shape when you hit it hard. The Acerbis one also looks really sleek and is really well priced. Fitting was mediocre. It needs to be fitted in a specific order, but once I figured that out, it's pretty straightforward. I also added these Acerbis X-Grip frame guards. The idea is they give you a little bit more grip, but I'm not so sure about that. They do protect the frame paint, however, and when you're riding off-road a lot, it's really easy to wear through that. Next up was the crash bars. Here, Alt-Rider was my choice. They are very well designed. They're really easy to fit, they're sleek and out of the way, and feel really strong. You can also run just the lower bars or the upper and lowers together. I wanted to try just using the lowers as that helps keep the weight down, and I didn't think I was going to need the upper bars. I also wanted to protect that massive expensive LED headlight, and Alt-Rider make a really nice clear shield. For this, clear is much better than a grille design at actually letting your headlight be a headlight. On top of that, I fitted a dual control pedal for the rear brake from Alt-Rider as an experiment to see whether it was any good, and a clutch arm extender. The idea with the extender is that it'll make the clutch lighter and make the biting area of the clutch wider, which should give you more margin for error when you're riding. I'm not sure if that's a good thing. I don't know if this product is going to be an improvement, but I really want to see whether it makes it easier to ride or not. After that, the next big changes I made were more nice to have upgrades that kind of holistically improve the bike. A lithium LifePo 4 battery is always a really nice upgrade. They're just better than lead acid batteries. I went for a Shido one, which clocked over 2 kilos lighter than the stock unit. They're easily the best bang for buck weight saving you can get on any motorbike. I've also added a Sprint filter. I'm not super familiar with the brand Sprint, but in the road bike world, they've got a great rep. The reason I chose this filter is because it's theoretically got better airflow and it doesn't need oiling. On top of that, it's waterproof, which is, for an ADV bike, an incredible feature to have. To clean it, you just blow it out with compressed air and that's it. It sounds like magic, and I'm really excited to see how effective it is in the real world. On one of the passes for this shot, I nearly smashed my face on the screen. It had to go. I ordered up the Adventure screen from Power Bronze to replace it. I also added Yamaha's Rally Seat. It's tall, flat, and gives you underseat storage, which is really nice. It's the perfect place to pop a Rocky Creek Designs Motopressor pump that you can find in our web shop. I'm hoping for a more dirt bike-like feel when I'm sat down, and generally a more comfortable bike to ride. It's worth noting that I'm pretty tall at 187 centimeters, and I'm a fan of taller seats in general. Obviously, I finished the build off with a custom set of Brake Magazine Wilderness graphics. A good project needs to look special. From there, I popped the bike in the van and headed to Portugal, so I'm going to hand over to me in Portugal to finish this off. The build is done. It is here, finished. It has taken me quite a few man hours in the garage, a lot of deliberating over decisions to make with what I wanted to do to To give you a quick rundown of what I've done to the bike to kind of get it to 80% of where I want it to be before we go into some detail with some of the other changes we're going to make, I'll run through the products. On the tyres front, this has by far been the most difficult decision. We are running essentially dirt bike tyres on it. I have a Metzeler 6 days Enduro on the front, and the reason is I wanted as much grip as possible. I have got options. So we've also got a hard pack front tyre. It makes a really big difference, but so far the Enduro tyre has been amazing. And on the back, we've got a Metzeler Karoo Extreme. That's their kind of rally tyre. It has also been very good so far. I will have more information on that down the line. I've also changed the levers. I'm not super sure how you say this. I believe they're called Giles levers. They also came from the Yamaha accessories catalog. You can buy them not from Yamaha too, and they're way nicer than I was expecting them to be. They looked good. When they came, they were a much better product than they look on the internet. Really nice to ride with. Pretty chuffed on those. The only thing is that they're not unbreakable style levers where they fold out of the way if you crash. But I've got bark busters, so it should be fine. I've also mounted up the Voyager Pro that we had on our Husky project bike to this so that I've got mapping here. I really love the way this maps. That is mounted to the GPS mount that's built into the Tenere using a Rally Raid Products AMPS style mount. Again, really simple design, but really effective product. And then the last 3 bits that I've got on this bike are really tiny things that are just kind of peripheral accessories to make things better. The first one is a nylon screw, which is sold by Rally Raid Products as well, in the bottom of the fork guards, because the standard one is known to break the foot of the fork if you catch it on something. Put a nylon one in there, the screw breaks, less of a drama. And lastly, I fitted a tail tidy. I bought it off eBay because I wanted to see what the difference was between a 120 quid tail tidy and a 35 quid one. The 35 quid one fits fine, it's made of steel, it's heavy as hell, and it's okay in design. 2 of the bolts that came with it weren't the right bolts. And apart from that, it lets a lot of mud come up around the back of the mudguard. Didn't really think of that before I put it on. Now I know. Something to consider. Maybe someone else has made a better design than that. And otherwise, that is it. The bike is done. The last thing on my list to mention, the graphics. I designed them. We get them printed. I really like them. You can buy them in the web shop. Woo! The bike is done. That doesn't mean the project series is done. We've got 3 more episodes to film while we're here in Portugal to do with this bike. So if you've enjoyed this video, hit the like button, maybe comment your questions down below. Let us know whether you like the bike or not, or you think it's the ugliest Tenere you've ever seen. Thanks for watching.